Hello, it's Hannah, and you are listening to No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the psych ward, answering the big question, how to navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one. It's Monday, it's Monday Mornings with Millie.
Join us every Monday to catch up on our week, tackle a new craft and talk all things drama school.
Hello, good morning.
Hello everybody.
It's another Monday morning with Millie.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know why I just keep saying hello.
Cheeky hello.
Hello.
Well, it is like the 6 weeks holidays, and we decided that for the next couple of episodes we're going to do a little bit of a drama school series in preparation for people who are starting drama school in September, or just
For
us who are also starting new courses. So we're going to start off today with neurodivergence at drama school, but if you've got any things you want to let us know, that would be great. So, neurodivergence. What is neurodivergence? Well, I'm going to start off with talking a bit about what is neurodiversity, because I think there are two things that can get a little bit confused and the terms kind of get misused. So what is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is the natural diversity of the human brain, whereas neurodivergence is someone whose brain functioning differs from what is considered or characterised as normal. So the idea of neurodivergence isn't, we don't kind of use the word neurodiversity because that kind of incorporates everybody, whereas neurodivergence is, people who...
It's one of Hannah's pet hates is when you say that she's neurodiverse.
It is.
It means that she's got multiple brains.
Brains. And I mean, that's a whole new thing. But neurodivergence also isn't just autism. It isn't just ADHD. Actually, quite a lot of things come under the bracket of neurodivergence. So things like bipolar, hyperlexia, dyspraxia, dyslexia, complex PTSD, fetal alcohol syndrome, OCD, developmental delay, BPD, dyscalculia, Down syndrome, acquired neurodivergence, Tourette's, brain injury, as well as obviously ADHD, autism. So there's actually so many, including, chronic mental health problems. So actually neurodivergence covers quite a large
umbrella
of people.
Span of people. Yes.
So obviously with that, one bit of advice is absolutely not going to work, and it's very individual and unique, and I think that's the main thing when it comes to neurodivergence. And as we've said probably a lot of times on this podcast, is that it is so unique and different and individual. Yeah. However, I wanted to kind of share a bit and with Millie just to kind of give a bit of my story, I guess, in terms of that, and just some tips and some pointers for people who are starting kind of, whether even not just drama school, and lots of different things, that kind of some questions that I asked myself, that obviously the answers will be different for you, but the questions kind of allow you to then...
Yeah. And obviously we don't have we aren't all of these things.
So I think it's more about kind of the questions that I asked myself that... they are kind of more universal. And I'm also thinking of doing a bit of a series, kind of focusing on the ones that I've got, how I navigated drama school with those, which again, obviously is still very personal, but a bit more specific. But today is kind of more of an overview, more of a question of the things that I asked myself in terms of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Being neurodivergent at drama school, Hannah, talk to me about it.
I think the big thing to stress is that being neurodivergent does not mean that you can't attend drama school.
I think we've proven that,
we have proven that, and it's a very big thing to kind of put out there. However, in the same breath, for me and my neurodivergence, and obviously again, absolutely conscious it's different for everybody, but there are extra things that I needed to take into consideration and questions I needed to ask myself, and kind of as I went through the process, things that I wish I'd thought about before I went that maybe differ from those who are neurotypical.
I think that was one of the things on the course, wasn't there? Like, lots of people were let me get my words out. Neurodivergent, but actually everyone was different and everyone coped with things differently, and everyone had different challenges, and there were varying levels of, people doing stuff.
Definitely. I think, that idea of support needs, I think everybody has very different support needs, and it's interesting, there were other people on my course, and there will be, who were also autistic, however didn't do the things in the same way that I did. And I think that's the first thing to say, like, if you are neurodivergent, is to be able to be really honest and open with yourself, like who you are, and that understanding that just because you've got this label, whatever it might be, there will be other people who have that label, but obviously you're not going to be the same, and that's okay not to be the same.
And also people who don't have labels, and they will also
struggle. And I think one of the big things in terms of, thinking back to like drama school, is that, which I think is with all education systems, is that when you go in saying you've got a certain label or certain diagnosis, people have assumptions, and that's just from, you know, lack of education. That's not against anybody, but I think that can be tricky because you can end up being kind of pushed into a box of like whatever your label means, and obviously, as we know, we're all different. So I think that's one of the biggest things. I did it kind of throughout the course, but if ideally I wish I'd kind of done it before, of like really knowing who you are. And obviously that's really hard, but in terms of like your neurodivergence especially, I know that I kind of very much played surface level to my like difficulties, and also I think wasn't always able to be completely honest with some of the kind of characteristics that I have that maybe aren't as nice, like maybe more negative. I think, and that's normal for absolutely everybody. However, when you're neurodivergent, you aren't able as easily to fake it as you make it. And I think I know that through school I masked really hard, but that ended in disaster. And I kind of thought in some ways of going back into education, or, you know, it'll be okay. And actually...
Also, drama school is a very vulnerable place.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It's harder to mask anyway.
Yeah.
And you're kind of doing a lot of work in areas like emotions, feelings, characteristics, which is really hard to then mask with. And I think definitely, and also I think the best thing about drama school is that you can go at any age. Like, it's not like, obviously you can do any course at any age, but obviously there's definitely, when it comes to drama school, there's a lot like wide age group. And I think people who have got themselves, like understand themselves, actually do better at drama school probably anyway, and especially with neurodivergence, because then you'll be able to be really honest and like kind of know yourself. I think it's such a hard industry anyway, because obviously you're constantly being questioned and constantly being rejected. But if you don't have a solid sense of who you are, and then you add in neurodivergence as well, you could end up really lost and really struggling.
And you learn as you go. As much as like it's good to have a understanding of who you are, you do learn that as you get, like, drama school is such a tool for learning who you are and understanding yourself a lot better.
And I would like, I think with neurodivergence, is understanding your difficulty before you go is really like important, more so than knowing who you are as a person, because again that comes definitely through like the whole process. But if you're kind of going in maybe not being able to be fully honest with yourself and your difficulties, which is really hard, like I find it so hard, you are more likely to come up against challenges, whereas not to say that those challenges won't be there, but you are able to deal with them in a different way. And I think that's the thing to say, is that, you know, and obviously again, neurodivergence covers such a broad, wide scale, and for some people their neurodivergence is only in a little specific part, and that's not to say it's smaller than others, but you know, it affects people differently. And for some people it might be that actually they just need to tell the person, and then actually on the whole it doesn't affect their everyday life. And I think it's for people who, I guess this kind of podcast is more for people who it does affect their everyday life, who it is a bigger part of the kind of who you are and what you do and like your support needs. I guess this is kind of focused more on that. And I think for someone who, you know, I definitely, you know, I am a capable person, but I have to be realistic that I do have, you know, support needs. I do have things. I'm not a normal neurotypical 23, 24-year-old. So therefore there are things that I need to take into consideration.
Yeah. And even if you don't feel like you need all of the support and the adjustments made for you, this might be a good tool to realise that potentially there are things that you might want to have put in place, because I think that's the big thing, isn't it, is that it doesn't take away from it needing to ask for help. Like, everyone needs help. Definitely. Neurotypical people need to ask for help. So
yeah. And that
ask for help, kids.
And that thing that it can change and it can fluctuate, and you know, and that's kind of something that I'm going to talk about in a bit, like finding the place that works for you. Once you find that place, they will be willing to work with you and see. And like, I know that I often say when I go somewhere, like, these are some access requirements that I have. However, it changes in whatever situation I'm in, so therefore we can work and play with how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So Hannah, tell me a bit about your experience at drama school, being a neurodivergent being.
I think it's interesting because when I was in school, I didn't know I was neurodivergent. I didn't know I was autistic or ADHD or any of those things. So therefore, I didn't have any support put in place then, and I really struggled. And obviously, because I had quite a big gap, coming back into education is quite scary anyway.
Yeah. I found it scary, and I was only off for a year. So.
Yeah, it is definitely a big thing, and especially when you probably had, for me, I had quite a negative experience on the whole in school. So therefore, it's kind of like a really scary thing, and especially like, I had a lot of, thoughts and people's opinions on drama school, and kind of it not necessarily being the most inclusive place for neurotypical people. So when you're thinking you're adding in a little bit of disability, that sounds a little bit scary. However, I think it was such a massive learning curve, and I'm really glad that I did a foundation that was just a year, because I think that really gave me the tools to kind of almost practice before I went on and did further study.
It's less daunting as well, isn't it? Thinking like, I'm only here for a year.
Exactly. I think, and I definitely kind of had it as a bit of a practice run, which was kind of, and also because for me, I was staying at home, which I think was really helpful as a neurodivergent person, who, also struggled a lot with like mental health, that actually being able to stay at home and be able to kind of do bits of it was really, really good. And I think for me, it made me realise, it sounds ridiculous, but like that quote of like, autism isn't just for Christmas. That thing of like, of course I knew that I'm neurodivergent. I know that my difficulties will be there forever. I know that I am neurodivergent. It's not an illness, it's not a disease. It's just the way I am and the way I look through the world. But I think due to societal pressure, due to ableism that's just in everyday life, you do, even those of us who really feel like I am someone who I definitely feel like I'm quite confident and quite accepting of my identity, there is definitely so much of that thing of like, I still thought that I could fake it till I make it. I still thought that I could be something else. And I think not even that I thought that, like I believed that was kind of the person I was. It's really, really hard to explain. But obviously when I got there and when I've been going through it, my difficulties, my neurodivergence, all of those things don't go away. Like just going to a new environment, changing things up doesn't change who you are. And that's great because you are who you are and you're amazing. And I think with that, it was such a kind of to ground moment for me, which is not even the word, I can't think what the word is, of like realising that, okay, being neurodivergent is for life. Yeah. I am going to always struggle due to the fact that this is a neurotypical world and I'm neurodivergent. And I think initially it was the whole like really cross, really like upset, and then I work through that, and I think that that's a process that we all have to go through when it comes to any kind of diagnosis. And then it's like, right, I am who I am. I am proud of who I am, and although absolutely I have many characteristics that aren't great, I also have many characteristics which are amazing.
You're an icon, Hannah.
Thank you. And
you know what I mean.
And so with that, I need to embrace who I am, and I need to put myself in spaces with people who embrace who I am. And yes, does that mean that there will be some places, some opportunities that I don't do because maybe the people are ableist, or maybe the people don't quite understand neurodivergence, or maybe just the way it has to be, even if they're really accepting, actually how it has to be just doesn't work for my brain and wouldn't work. And as hard as that is, I have to learn to go, that is what it is. And I think it's really hard because I absolutely put neurodivergence in a positive light, and I always would never say that there is nothing we can't do as neurodivergent people. However, there isn't anything we can't do.
There's stuff that you shouldn't do.
But there is stuff that we shouldn't do.
Put yourself through things. I think that's a thing, isn't it? Like, actually, the experiences that are meant to be will be. And if it's not meant to be, as disappointing and annoying as it is, something better, or like everything. I think it's that kind of cliche thing of everything is meant to be, and actually there are lots of experiences that you might not have, but actually just because you're not having them, there are probably better experiences coming your way.
Yes. And I think, and again, and even, I will be totally honest, and this is probably slightly controversial, but that is who I am, and I will forever say it.
We'll see if this makes it into the final edit. I
think that thing of, there will be places that are ableist. Just like...
No, that's not controversial. I feel like that's just a fact.
There are, just as the same as there are, still places that are misogynistic, that are racist, that are all of those things, and that doesn't condone it. It will never be condoned. But there will be people, there will be places who absolutely wrongly discriminate against you as a neurodivergent person, and it's happened to me, and I know it, as much as it makes me, I know it will happen again. But what I've kind of learned, and it's really hard, because absolutely discrimination should not happen for any reason, but what I have learned through it, and it's kind of hard to kind of put into words, that thing, that I'm not accepting it. I'm not accepting the fact that people can use my characteristics, my neurodivergent characteristics, my own disability against me. However, I also have to be realistic in the world, and I know that it's going to happen, but it's about...
And it comes from a place of ignorance.
Yes, and lack of education. Which is still not good enough, but that's why we have the advocacy. That's why I do these things that I do, because I want to make a change in that. However, as a person, you also have to protect your own well-being, and there are some spaces that are just not worth the fight, and actually, it's not you that's missing out, it's them.
Exactly.
And that is the thing of, like, you know, it hurts, the pain of being discriminated against, unless you've been there, is like really hard, especially against something that you cannot control, that isn't within your control. And, you know, as neurodivergent people, we're definitely not the only people that experience discrimination. There's so much discrimination still in this world, and it is important to fight, it is important to advocate, but at the same time, it's also important to look after your well-being. And there are spaces, and especially when it comes to drama school, you know, there are so many drama schools out there. If one doesn't want you, there will be another that welcomes you with open arms.
Exactly. And knows your worth. We've said it before, and we'll say it again. Nothing is worth your mental health.
Definitely. And I think, you know, people do find neurodivergence tricky to understand. You know, there's lots of kind of things going around. There's lots of misinformation. There's stereotypes. There's, you know... Misconceptions. There's so many different things, and it's really hard. And I know, like myself, that you start to feel like, well, I'm never going to be able to have these opportunities, so maybe if I change myself. And for me, and I can imagine a lot of people, you can try to change yourself, but it won't work. And actually, you shouldn't change yourself, because being neurodivergent is the lens you see the world, and that's all the things that you struggle with are equally the things that make you amazing. Yeah. And I'm learning that, and it's not something that you like overnight. It's not a mindset change that happens. It's something that every day you have to kind of say to yourself, I accept myself for me, I accept myself with all my difficulties. But when you find a space that welcomes you for who you are, literally I cannot describe the feeling of that. Yeah. And there are places out there that understand, who get it, who want to work with it, and know that we are amazing and capable people, and that we just need to navigate things in our own way.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges of neurodivergence in drama school. And
again, obviously, to clarify that this is very different and individual and unique, which I feel like I have to say every single time, but it is. I don't want anyone to, not putting anyone in boxes, but I think it is always nice to hear other people's experiences, and definitely there will be some that overlap, but also very conscious this is just kind of part of it. Yeah. So I think
I'm laughing because I'm seeing exhausting with 2 exclamation marks.
It is exhausting. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
It's exhausting for everybody. And then when you add in neurodivergence, it is going to be even more exhausting. Whatever your neurodivergence is, especially if I'm kind of looking at it from like the autism, ADHD, complex PTSD kind of angle. But again, you know, any way that your brain veers from what society deems is normal is going to make life more tiring, because you've got to work harder so that's just kind of, and then drama school is tiring as it is, because it's long hours, it's lots of physical, it's lots of brain power, it's lots of looking at emotions. So it is definitely that thing that it is tiring. It's a lot of, especially to begin with, and I think that's something that I'm going to kind of come on into in a minute, with that thing that the beginning's going to be rough. And the beginning's rough for everybody, even more so if you're neurodivergent. However, as it says on my access requirement passport, ride the wave with me. Because if you can ride the wave with me to begin with, you then get the reward at the end. And I think that...
What reward are you
I
giving
don't
people,
know.
Hannah?
No, I'm not giving them any rewards, but
Just your personality.
just my personality. And I think that it was interesting. I can't even remember who I was speaking to, but someone said that, I think it was actually on a different podcast for the Mighty Creatives, and spoke about the thing of like, because of that change idea that a lot of neurodivergent people struggle more to begin with, and once we get settled, and I think that initial part is definitely, you know, we're going to talk about friends and family and staff and stuff, that's hard for them, but it's also hard for us as neurodivergent people, because we think, oh my gosh, are we relapsing if we've also struggled with mental health? Are we not capable? Are we really stupid? I know that was definitely something that I thought. I was like, well, I'm just so stupid because I can't just get on with it like everybody else. And people are all telling you, they're like, oh, everyone's struggling. You know, everyone finds it hard to begin with. And absolutely everybody does. But I think as a neurodivergent person, that can feel invalidating, because it can sometimes feel for us that not only are we not coping and everyone's not coping, we're not coping to the point of like, I'm really, really, really not coping.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Is like how do I make this? Because I get where you're coming from in terms of like, you end up feeling like, oh, everyone's struggling, but actually everyone else seems to be getting on with it.
Seems to be coping.
But actually, is everyone else coping, or are they just coping in a different way in terms of their holding on for dear life when they're in the room,
and also I think that thing of, you know, these words are bandied around, you know, anxiety, depression, all of all those other things, and I think there is lines and there is differences, and I think, you know, I definitely found that in places where I'll say something and they'll go, well, everybody has that, and it's like, yeah, they do, but there are different levels of this where it becomes a problem. And I think that's the thing with neurodivergence. It's a really hard line to kind of cross, because there's basically the fear of it going either way. Either people thinking you're too disabled and not capable and you're too different and you can't do it, or people thinking that you are absolutely fine and that everybody struggles a bit, and then you start to drown. And I think it is really hard, and I find that line and that balance really hard to be able to kind of advocate for myself enough to say, I need help, I need support, but also I'm absolutely capable and I can do it. And I think there will be places that don't get that. Many places will not get that, and then it's kind of a decision that comes to a question to you, is that then something that you can deal with and cope with, or is it not? And like, for me, I know that I've learned that isn't something that I can deal and cope with. If they can't be on the same path, that like line that I'm on, I can't, and that's just me. And for some people, they might be able to navigate that, and that's fine. But I know, like, being really honest, if we're heading either to the end of those extremes, I know that realistically that's going to end in disaster. But does that mean that I'm going to stay in my bed for the rest of my life? No, I found three places that I'm kind of doing this kind of thing coming up, and all three couldn't get it more. And I think that's the hope that I want to give people to hold on to, that, you know, it's really hard, and I think it is such a hard thing to talk about neurodivergence and, you know, struggling and mental health in these days, because there is that thing of everybody, you know, has it, and everybody's this and everybody's that, and it's not, that isn't the case. And, you know, that's kind of not to say that we're aliens and then we're different, absolutely not, but I think definitely the narrative at the moment has gone very much towards, which I think is really helpful, that feeling of not being alone. But also I think it can also be really tricky for those of us who, you know, that idea that, well, if everybody struggles a bit, why can't we just get on with it? Well, we can't just get on with it. And for me, I know I can't just get on with it. No. And as much as sometimes I wish I could just get on with it, I wish I could just float off now at 24 and just go and do whatever I wanted to do. I know realistically that I can't. And that is what it is. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do amazing things. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do all of the things I wanted to do. But I have to remind myself that I have to do them in my way. Yeah. And that thing that any kind of drama school is still an education establishment. It's still a binary system. It's still all linear.
And also drama school, I think there's a big thing of like, you've got to be grateful to be there.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
And that also, that, you know, the industry as a whole is still going to be ableist. It's not just ableist, it's got a lot of things going on, and you know, that is still the case. And that doesn't mean that we condone it, doesn't mean we accept it, but that's something to have in the back of your mind, that there will be staff, there will be places, there will be people, just like there is in every walk of the world and every walk of society, that don't understand, that don't get it, that don't even want to learn or listen or be educated, or they think that being autistic or being any kind of neurodivergence means that you cannot be an actor. And there will be people who like that. And there's a lot of reasons why, activism and advocacy works in that respect of trying to, reduce that. But I think as a person kind of looking at yourself, there is going to be that. And I am a very passionate believer that in any walk of life, and that's not just neurodivergence, not even just drama school, any kind of workplace or education establishment, especially once you've gone and you're specialising, the name is just one thing. And yes, you might have the most amazing and prestigious institution that you get into, but if you don't finish your degree, if you end up losing the will, it's not worth. No,
say it with us. Nothing's worth your
mental health. You do not have to go to drama school to get into this industry. You don't. That is categorical fact. However, if you want to go to drama school for whatever reason, find...
we can't find any reasons. Yes, no, we can.
Find somewhere that you really connect with, because that way you will give your best self. They will want you for who you are. They will accept you for who you are. You will do your best. You will be your best. And that is what is much more likely to get you into rooms and audition spaces than someone who is not you, who you're pretending to be, who every day you're upset, every day you're miserable, every day you're wishing. Then that's not someone who's going to get anywhere apart from probably to a psych ward.
Also, even if you're not, we've probably got different approaches to this, but even if you're not 100% sure, go and have a go. Give it a go. I mean, obviously, Right, what am I saying here?
We definitely have different opinions, but I don't know whether I think I probably do come from the more extreme version of I spent so long in hospital. And I know that for me, if I can't cope somewhere, my life is in danger. Whereas I think for other people, you can try it, hate it, leave. Whereas for me, I know that with the way my brain works, that there would be a high chance that I would be in incredible danger in the process of that. Whereas I think...
Okay, don't go and try it, guys.
But I do think it depends. And I think that thing of... It also does depend. What I'm going to go and do, I'm feeling really confident on the whole. But obviously, as my mum has said, if you hate it, leave.
Exactly.
And so it is...
That's my message.
It is kind of like a trial thing. However, if I was not feeling it now...
Yeah.
My mum would be like, no, Hannah. But also I know now I would have to go no, because if I've got any doubts now, and that doesn't mean you don't have worries. I've obviously got loads of worries and concerns, but any real niggling doubts, for me, I wouldn't go, because I know that if I've already got doubts now, for me, that's knowing myself and knowing my history, and I know that that's only going to escalate. Whereas absolutely, I
think it's mainly the thing of it's okay to change your mind, and if you
that's the biggest thing,
and it's not what you want anymore, and it's not what you think,
big fat get out,
causing problems.
Definitely,
big fat get out,
big fat get out. And I think that's another
big fat leave. That's
another kind of interesting thing about drama school, is not with all of them, but there is the capacity to change within kind of re-auditioning to different places, and obviously you don't necessarily going to get in, but I think I know people, I know the course that I'm doing, people can come in at both year 1, year 2 and year 3, and people do.
That's wonderful.
So that thing of there are places that do that, and I think that's kind of the thing is it is going to be hard, just as everything in life. Drama school is quite understandably not a perfect place, and you will, as a neurodivergent person, especially thinking about myself and being autistic, ADHD, kind of those things, and mental health problems and complex PTSD, it's a mammoth task. I'm going to be honest, it's a mammoth task, and it is a very, very big thing. However, that's not to say you can't do it. That's not to say that you shouldn't do it. But I think
it's understanding the challenge.
It's understanding the challenge, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. I think that's, for me, going in, knowing and being kind of not overly prepared, because then you're kind of looking for the negatives right from the beginning, but knowing kind of the situations. And ultimately, I think it does come down to knowing yourself and being able to kind of accept your identity. And I think, that's not just neurodivergence, that's probably quite a lot of people, but Definitely in terms of neurodivergence, if you can go in and go, I am who I am. I know that I have these difficulties. I know I have things I really can't do, but I also have these strengths, and this is who I am, and I am proud to stand here and say I need my ear defenders on if the fire alarm goes off, and whatever anybody says, I am putting those ear defenders on, and that is that. And if you can go in and you can articulate it in a very polite and nice way, and they go, absolutely, that's fine, then you're being honest. And I think that's for me, like, definitely, you know, there are definitely different ways that I'm going to go into my next course and from what I've gone into this course.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really wanted to kind of put in a bit was like a bit of kind of advice, I guess, like tips. I'm no professional and no, but like just kind of some of the things that I did that might be something for you to think about. I think definitely the first one is a student passport, and these are really kind of controversial, difficult, and it's that kind of thing of like telling staff about your difficulties, and this is twofold. And absolutely to disclose, obviously you are protected under the Disability Act, the Equality Act, to be as a protected characteristic. However, as you know, it is your personal information, and it's not something that you have to share. It's something that you need to think about, and obviously that, you know, no one else can pressure you either way to say you should tell them or you shouldn't tell them. For me, and this is for me only, I cannot speak for anybody else, telling people is the only way that I can attend anything. And it's interesting because with that, not only do I tell them, I also have a student access passport, which I've created, very unique, very individual to me. And if any,
very pretty as well, I can't lie.
And if anyone is interested, I know that often, you know, support passports, student passports can be very generic or very childlike. If anyone is interested, do DM me on Instagram. I can share you the template that I've got of mine. But I think for me, that has been a massive thing. And let me tell you, my support passport has been taken in many different ways by people. And again, that does tell you a lot about the place you're going, because if you share that information and you share your support passport, you can get quite a good feeling about the place you're going by how they respond. And there will be people who don't even bother reading it. There will be people who look at it and go, oh my goodness, you cannot come here, you are far too disabled, which again, they're not allowed to say under the Equality Act, but let me tell you,
I'll find a way.
It does happen. And there will be people that open you with open arms and go, let's have a meeting, let's chat about it. And, you know, I've had many meetings about my access requirements, and it's hard. And, you know, kind of, as you go through life, you begin to learn kind of what works and what doesn't. And then your support passport can become so much more, like, specified and, like, specific to you, which is obviously the more it is kind of really informative, the more it helps. But I wanted to share a really positive experience I had recently. Was I shared my support passport, and I was really scared because other times I've had really negative experiences when I've shared it. And I kind of always start the meeting, then she asked if I wanted a Zoom chat, which I always say yes to. Because I'm like, let's
love a bit of Zoom,
and like let's chat about it as well, because, you know, on paper things can read differently to how they are in real life. And I always start it because I'm so conscious, which, you know, again, isn't how it should be, but it is what it is. This is real life. Of with like, yes, I have these difficulties, but I am really, really capable. And I think, you know, and it straight away, she was like, yeah, no, absolutely. We just want to make sure that, you know, you've got everything in place, and like, you know, the worst case scenario, and like, we know that things will be harder to begin with. And it was just so refreshing for people who can read a support passport and not just see the negatives. And I think there are places out there. And for me, I know that how someone takes my access passport tells me a lot about how well I'm going to do in that place. Because when people look at it and go, oh my goodness, you're completely incapable. Yeah, there are bits of my support passport that if you read them, you'd think, oh my goodness, like maybe. But it's people who can then read through that and go, right, let's put this into context. So that's a big thing, that if you feel comfortable and confident, it would be to disclose any difficulties you have and create yourself, you know, take some time to create yourself a student passport, create yourself an access rider. That's something that I'm going to be doing in terms of specifically for the performance industry, is having an access rider, which again is like a slightly different version of like a student passport.
I just always think whenever you think of riders, they're like riders that 80s rock bands used to have.
Oh.
But they're slightly different. They were asking for slightly different things.
Slightly different things. I think if you do feel comfortable, that
just a little bit of Millie input there.
That is something that, you know, tells you a lot. And I think it's also looking into yourself, looking into your difficulties, looking into things that have worked before, having things that you can take. I think that's really important, is when you're asking for support, take in ideas and strategies, kind of. And although that I find that really hard, because you're worried of women if they go, well, we're not offering that. But that thing of having some actual concrete ideas allows them to get a bit of a sense, because they're going to find it harder just to pluck things out of the air, because either they're not going to work for you, or they don't really know what they mean, or they could look, you know, not be the right thing. So I would definitely say list all the things that could help you. You know, for example, I'm just thinking of one of the things for me was in dance class was something I really found dance really tricky, in terms of I can dance, but I really struggle in dance classes because of, you know, the way my brain kind of works. I found on Equity there's a really good thing about autistic dancers, and like kind of that you can give. So I printed that off, and then I asked for I explained who I was, I explained to the teacher, explained my difficulties, and then kind of asked that if I could be paired with someone that I really knew, who could kind of briefly, and again not impacting them in any way, but just kind of like briefly reiterate what I had to do to me kind of at the side. Actually, it helps them as learners, because then they're like kind of reteaching what the thing. And it was that thing of like asking to be in a specific place in the room, not doing certain bits, allowing time to go over the thing, maybe not asking me to demonstrate because my brain hasn't processed in quite a quick enough way. And it's things like that that you can kind of ask for, that don't impact, that don't mean you're not still achieving the objectives, but you're doing it in a way that works for you. And I think that's kind of, when it comes to access requirements, is definitely the big thing.
That's something that I feel like you learned as you went along.
Definitely. I had no idea
on
about
our
that before.
course.
Yeah.
Because by the end, you were quite clear about like, oh, this is... And also, the staff had got to know you and knew what needed to be put in place.
And I think that's something that I now always say, is that to begin with, it's going to be a mess. The beginning is always a mess, because there's just so much. I can't even describe to you why. It just is. And a lot of that comes from, like, I always find it hard when people say, well, what support do you need? Because I'm like, well, I've not been in this situation before, so I don't know. And that's probably the most autistic literal answer ever. But actually, it's about going through, and I think definitely for my second term was different again, because I'd worked out, and again it's something that you have to work out. Like, no one else can work out what support you need, only you. People obviously can suggest things and add things in, but as the staff get to know you better, as you get to know yourself better, as you know how you function in that particular environment, it's about being able to go and speak to people, say, you know, I'm struggling with this, these are some of the things that I think could help, and then them working out what works within the environment that you're in.
I think that's a big thing, is being open to the fact that, like, as much as you can try and know yourself, as much as you won't know, and also just keeping yourself open to the things that are going to happen. There are going to be situations, I think, for everyone, that are uncomfortable situations, and actually it's more of the being confident in yourself, in the fact that, like,
I suppose that's
maybe I don't fully know myself, but I know these things, and I know what I need.
I suppose it's not knowing. It's not knowing yourself. I suppose it's being honest about who you are, maybe more than knowing yourself. Because absolutely, you don't know yourself, and it's going to change. But I guess it's having that understanding of the fact that you will struggle, but that you're also really capable, and that kind of feeling of knowing your own worth, even when moments that you won't always feel that. And I think, definitely the kind of knowing yourself in the presence of who you are in that moment, but then being willing and knowing that if that's going to change, and as that changes, you're willing and able to adapt to kind of how it looks in this new situation. Do you think that sounds probably kind of a better explanation? And I think the other main tip is downtime and preempting. Like, don't allow your bucket to be completely full before you have a rest. Be honest with yourself. You know, absolutely, attendance is important, but also it's being honest with yourself. And if having one day off means that you can be there for the rest of the term, absolutely take that day off. be honest, and that kind of comes with being open and honest with staff, is that they understand and that they know the difficulties, and they know that you're not there from lack of effort or because you can't be bothered or you went on a big night out the night before. They know why you're not there. And I think that thing of evenings, knowing, especially to begin with, you're going to be absolutely exhausted, so not having lots of extra things to do around the time, and just being really, really kind of kind to yourself. And also, I suppose, keeping a lot of maybe the routines that you have outside of drama school quite similar to begin with, so that there's not too much change, and like having that support in place. And whether if you've moved, still having, you know, calls or FaceTimes regularly with people who you're like us, your support network, and kind of trying to keep as many things as you can the same to allow the kind of overwhelm of the change to
subside.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. And with that, we bid you farewell.
Have a lovely...
Oh, Teddy is joining in.
Teddy's saying goodbye. Bye-bye. Have a nice week, and...
follow the Instagram.
At Legally Detained.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Take
This
care.
ending has been a shambles.